So Frank, what's it like traveling this time of year?
This is almost 4 months after the lockdown. We were just on Wizz Air a couple days ago, and they're still looking the same as they did 3.5 months ago. They're still running on, the plane is running on 25% capacity now. And of course, any company that has any amount of debt is just going to go under. So I don't know, them being budget airlines, I'm sure they're running their business super lean, and maybe that's why they're still around, but I don't know how much longer a business like that is supposed to be expected, and maybe that's the whole thing, is they're not being expected to be able to make it. Because if there was any concern over that, you'd see changes. So you're not seeing them. And yeah, the plane was mostly empty.
What was it like inside the airports?
It depends on what airport, but the airport that was bad, young men with black boots on and guns on their side, holstered in, barking orders like Gestapo, telling people to, get further apart from each other while waiting in line to check in.
Social distancing.
Yeah, but, and this is all for your own good, of course. Just barking orders every few minutes. Of course, after you wait in line, you all have to get on the bus anyway. So, none of it makes any real sense. There's no real, integral.
Well, it's not consistent.
No, it's not just that it's not consistent. It's that there's no core intelligence in it. There's no core factual intelligence in it. It's just all nonsensical. And one has to ask, why do we allow people in authority to push nonsensical ideas on us? Why? Because at its core, it was intelligent, factual, and complete, which most of the information on the internet is not. There's a lot of propaganda on this issue, compulsory masks, social distancing, the whole narrative, the whole thing, right? And it's being exposed. It's being exposed every day, right? So there's no truth in it. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't stay to the top. It sinks, all right? When it is analyzed and weighed and sifted with facts and truth and proper analysis, it does not hold. It does not hold. So there's absolute no reason to accept this kind of a system. And we keep seeing a recurring theme that goes back to Chinese communism. This is just preposterous. I mean, look, if there's people that want to live under communism, let them move to China, right? And if Chinese communism is so good for you, they wouldn't have to propagandize. Why would you put out misinformation, non-factual information, incomplete information, which is what propagandizing is? Why would you have to do those things if what you have is so good? If what you have is so good, wouldn't people be beating down your doors to get in?
Yeah.
No, people are beating down the doors to get out.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, if you're misinformed, don't understand, or think you do, and you think you want communism, you're welcome to take a plane straight to China.
"到处都是监控，每天装甲车啊，一些坦克啊，在市区里面走来走去，也没有具体的法律规定，没有它的一些尺寸。
Reporting in Xinjiang in China's far northwest feels like traveling in a war zone.
So we're here in Urumqi, which is the capital of Xinjiang, in a market downtown. The security here is incredibly tight. There are armored cars on the streets, police stations on every corner, and tons of surveillance cameras.
In the past year, police have stepped up security. The region is now under what's probably the most intense government surveillance in the world. Here, China is experimenting with futuristic spying technologies. We came to see what life looks like in a place where your every move can be monitored. To be in Xinjiang means being checked every day, multiple times a day. When you go to a market, when you drive a car, when you take a train, even your smartphone is checked. As reporters, we were stopped dozens of times by police in just a few days. Our interviews were interrupted. We were detained and chased out of town. Daily life can be exhausting even for people who approve of the security, like this wine shop owner we met.
非常麻烦，就会给人造成一种困扰。人一旦有了困扰，他就不愿意去干这个事。对，就像我喜欢逛街，但是我一去逛街就要查个身份证的话，有造成的困扰，我就不愿意上街了。
The surveillance apparatus falls hardest on Uyghurs. Parhat Imin sells pomegranate juice in the streets of Urumqi. He used to sell Islamic items, but after ethnic riots in 2009, the police forced him to close his shop.
Imin has had run-ins with authorities since. He was once sent to jail for buying hashish. Now, he says every time he goes through a checkpoint, his ID sets off an alarm. Imin says authorities are targeting him because he's Uyghur. The government didn't respond to requests for comment.
You know, if so many people love Chinese communism, let them go to China. If it's so good, they don't have to impose it on the rest of the population.
In Xinjiang, Chen has taken his methods of mass control to a new level, turning the region into a laboratory for new surveillance technology. ID cards loaded with personal details are used to track people's movements. Residents have different levels of freedom based on factors like ethnicity and religious practices.
In order for future generations to fly sustainably, we need to rethink broad sections of the industry itself, developing infrastructure and new processes that can cope with future demand without relying on ever bigger airports. It means putting passengers at the heart of the decision-making process and providing them with a truly seamless, more efficient and secure experience. With passengers' consent, IATA's One ID allows for a paperless airport experience using a single, secure biometric travel token, such as Face. fingerprint, or iris scan for all travel processes, validating their identities throughout their journey. As a passenger, sharing your digital identity ahead of the journey will allow you to be biometrically recognized as you arrive at the airport and drop off your luggage. No more passport or boarding pass, no more hassle. You would then pass security and border control very quickly and board using the same simple process, experiencing reduced queues and waiting times and allowing you to relax and enjoy your journey. This highly efficient and innovative process improves traveler satisfaction, provides enhanced security, and increases capacity within existing infrastructure. In order to make this vision a reality, we need to agree on global standards for a digital identity that could be trusted and recognized by the industry and governments. Together, we can make air travel safer, more efficient, secure, and sustainable.
The system also tracks faces. An immense network of security cameras, some equipped with facial recognition, is constantly monitoring the streets. Facial recognition systems are also used to match people with their ID cards, everywhere from shopping malls to gas stations. Authorities use artificial intelligence that can alert them if someone in a video is walking too fast or parked in the wrong spot. The government has also massively increased human surveillance. It has recruited 6 times more policemen this year than it did in 2015. Cities are now dotted with brand new police booths, one every couple hundred yards in some Uyghur neighborhoods. Hamid and other Uyghurs in exile say people categorized as unsafe were sent to study centers for political education. We found one of the so-called schools buried down a rural road on the outskirts of Kashgar. It was newly built and looked more like a prison, with watchtowers and walls topped with razor wire.
这是说白了就是集中营，这个时候就通过监控来指定抓什么样的人。
The government didn't respond to our request for comment, but Hamid says many more people are being detained today than in the past.
很多人他不知道为什么被抓，不知道把他送到哪里，不知道什么时候放出来。
The surveillance state in Xinjiang is likely to keep expanding.
也就是梦见新疆，梦见乌鲁木齐。第二天醒来呢，一看，第二天醒来以后，我们觉得是在美国，很安全。
Look at this plaza, this amazing plaza that we're in. Look at all these dogs. What does this image do for you? What does it tell you? And then there's only one guy up here. What is the message here?
Now China's government is testing a new social credit score system which would rank its citizens based on their online behavior.
While it won't fully roll out until 2020, starting this year, China will ban people with a bad score from booking flights and train rides. In the US, private companies are investing millions to secure government contracts, which could make machine learning and image recognition a regular part of police work. Law professor Andrew Guthrie Ferguson is a leading expert on big data policing. He spoke to us about the ramifications that these technologies could present. When you look at China's system of facial recognition and video surveillance, what do you see?
I see the future and it scares me. If you have the capability to identify people and patterns, and you can show association about where you go and why you're going there, it really will change the relationship between citizens and their governments.
In China, the government has heavily invested in these companies developing facial recognition technology. In the US, it's still more in the private sector. Can you explain the difference?
So much of the story of big data policing has been small startup companies, or even sometimes the big tech companies, that are pushing police to use new technologies. One of the open questions is who owns this data? Take police body cams, right? Right now, there is sort of an arms race of people trying to sell police body cameras to policing all across America. All of that data from all of those officers is actually really valuable for other non-law enforcement purposes. You're really capturing patterns of society. And if the private companies can use that data for other things, even sell it for other reasons, they're going to want to profit it. Part of the reason why we have seen this move toward big data policing is because it sounds like an objective move to sort of turn the page from some of the racial tension we've seen after Ferguson and after Baltimore and after Staten Island. To something that sounds more objective. Don't worry, this is data-driven. The problem is the data comes from us. And if you're not cautious about how you're collecting that information and then using it, you're just going to reify the same biases.
So how slippery is the slope we're standing on? How quickly could this be implemented here?
The technology you see in China exists. It's working, and it can do the same thing here. Young people growing up in America today are pretty used to being surveilled by their phones and their Facebooks and their Snapchats and the rest. We might have different constitutional protections, but it's still unsettled. And it's an open question about how we react. And I hope we start asking those questions to react now.
Look at how many there are. All these ferocious dogs. There's like, what, 3 or 4 dozen, right? Wolves, right, wolves. Only one guy, and he's surrounded, but there he is holding up his sword. And look, there's a few dozen more dogs even there. So, by the looks of it, he doesn't stand a chance. Yet there he is with no fear. That's the message, folks. That's the message I get. But do we see that? Do we see that?